Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Yes, today's an exciting video. It's one filled with positivity, one that will encourage many a healthy debate in the comments section, and one that Celtic have very kindly presented to me as we struggle for video content at the moment. But this is a good one. I'm excited for this. It's time to talk about the end of season awards. Get the suit and tie on. It's time to vote for who we think is Celtic Player of the Season. Before we go any further, you know what time of the video this is. Go down below, hit like, hit subscribe if you can. I was looking at some interesting analytics last night, and it was showing me that we have 33,000 subscribers at the moment, but we've got 55,000 unique different viewers who come across this channel, which means there's about 20,000 people who watch these videos from time to time and don't subscribe to the channel. So if you're one of those people, please go down below, hit subscribe, hit the like button as well. Let's get on the road to 40k. I thank you all for the support recently, but let's get to bigger and more important things. Let's talk about the end of season awards at Celtic. So as I briefly touched on, I'm very glad this came out today from Celtic to vote for the Player of the Season, the Young Player of the Season, the Goal of the Season and the Women's Player of the Season, because I don't want to overdo the derby chat before the big content of the weekend. We've got the podcast out tomorrow, which will cover all fronts before that semi-final. We'll also have a video on Saturday, which will give a sort of final preview for that game. But before all of that, you know, it's time to have some fun, and I love this because, you know, it makes us look back on what is a really good season for Celtic. And as I said at the start, it encourages some healthy debate. You know, I like the debates that we have about who's Player of the Season because it's all good. It's all positive. You know, we're talking about how good players are at Celtic. There's not any bad things to be brought up here. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm really looking forward to going through and giving the positives of each player and talking about how far we've come. If you remember last year, the end of season awards was a really dire affair. We didn't really want to talk about it. I mean, there wasn't many positives of the last season. David Turnbull, Christopher Ayer, those were the two names that we threw about last season, but it was really the best of a bad bunch. So this year, amongst all the positivity, is sort of a throwback to what has been the last sort of decade for Celtic, weighing up the best of this club and looking over it once more. So let's not waste much time because we've got a lot of areas to go over and I want to talk about each player. So yeah, let's get into it and like and subscribe. So, of course, if you want to vote as well, it's very simple. Head on to the Celtic website and you can get involved in casting your vote for the end of season awards. Here we have it here on screen. Player of the Year, Goal of the Season, Young Player of the Year and Women's Player of the Year. We've got a lot to cover in this video, so let's get into it. Let's go through my awards, and we're starting with the big one. We're going to start with the biggest award, and that is Player of the Year at Celtic. So many players this year worthy of their own right of being named Player of the Year, and they've got some of them on screen here. I feel like there's a couple that have been harshly left out as well, but of course you can't nominate the whole team. And one thing I will say is everybody's played their part this season. I think every player has put in a brilliant shift in getting us to the point we are at. Of course, some more than others, but you know, from where we were at the start of the season to where we are now, everybody's chipped into that, and the regular starters especially have just been brilliant from start to finish. You know, we've been doubted some players here and there, but ultimately I'm very proud and very happy with how far this team has come, and it makes it a really difficult one to choose between these guys. Now, the one guy that I want to give a shout out and in relation to all of this that isn't on this list is Liel Abada. I feel like he should be involved in the Player of the Year conversation. I feel like it's quite hard done by for him that he's not involved here in this conversation for Player of the Year. But here we are. We have our nominations. We've got Callum McGregor, Tom Rogic, Joe Hart, Jota, Kyogo Furuhashi, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. All of them so deserving of being nominated for the award. We'll start with the captain, Callum McGregor. I mean, unbelievable. The description they've provided, Celtic's captain, fantastic, has led from the front all season, and he's been just a joy to watch. And I said this in a video a couple of days ago, perhaps his best season yet in a Celtic shirt. And I didn't think that would be easy to do this season. I thought that would be a big ask, you know, kind of getting into that captain's role, becoming used to it, maybe even settling into a different role in the team as well, being kind of behind two other midfielders. I thought this was going to be a real sort of season for Cal McGregor to adapt, still be good, but still adapt and get better as it goes. But right from the start, he's been incredible, and he's worth So much of a shout for this award, and so many people are voting for him quite rightfully. He's so good. He's been brilliant at everything he's been asked to do. He looks so composed, and we've used this word all the time when it comes to McGregor for the past few years: consistency. He's always consistent. This is a guy who dropped out the team, remember, with a facial injury, walked back into it with a mask on, and has strolled it. He's let nothing faze him. He's not let the captaincy put extra pressure onto his game. If anything, he's thrived under it, and he's just been superb. Absolutely fantastic to watch this season, and he's going to go down in Celtic history as a great captain, as one of our most talented players, I think. There's not many players in my lifetime who I watch like Callum McGregor and go, he just knows what he's doing. Defensively, offensively, just brilliant, and this season is a real sort of epitome of all of that. Tom Rogic, what a revival of a season he's had. I think at the start of the season, I didn't expect him to have a major part in this Celtic team, despite the fact that Ange Postecoglou was coming in, a former manager of his with the Australian national team. I still didn't quite think that Rogic would get back into this team and hit the heights that we know Rogic can get to, but boy oh boy, has he proved me wrong, and he's proved thousands of us wrong as well. And we were so willing to see him go. Well, not willing, but we were ready to see him off. There was that talk of him going to Qatar, and then we were saying, should we keep him around? He didn't have the greatest of campaigns last year under Neil Lennon. This was a big one for him, and he's stepped up. He's handled the pressure like McGregor, and he's offered us some brilliant moments. He's had those moments in games where you bring up the fact that he is one of the best players in Scotland. When it comes down to sheer technical ability, he's right up there in the conversation. You know, people like to compare the likes of Joe Aribo to Tom Rogic, and I think that's quite frankly offensive to Tom Rogic, because he's that good. He plays with the slippers on, cigar in hand, and he's had so many of those performances this season where he's just stood out amongst the rest. So fantastic season for him too, well worthy of a shout of player of the season. Joe Hart, my boy Joe, my favourite player in the team. And listen, I've spoke time and time and time again about how wrong I have been proven with Joe Hart, just like I was proven wrong with Tom Rogic as well, but with Joe Hart especially, someone that I wanted nowhere near Celtic. And now I sit on this seat, quite frankly, ready to press his name for player of the season. Oh, I have pressed his name. I didn't mean that. Yes, as I was saying, quite frankly ready to press his name, because I think he's been unbelievable. And I know that the goalkeepers at Celtic don't have the biggest jobs in the world, because sometimes we don't face as many shots as what other keepers do around the league, but he has been tremendous. And it's not just his saves, his leadership at the back has been tremendous. As it says there, he's brought leadership at the back and made big saves at key times, and he has. You can't underestimate what some of these saves do. And one thing we never had last season was a goalkeeper making big saves, and that can change the course and the outcome of a game. And Joe Hart has come in, and he's been able to do that by making big saves. He's been able to change the kind of result of a game, because he's been there in big moments. It makes sure the head doesn't drop. And yes, sometimes we've seen some dodgy moments at the back with Joe Hart, but ultimately he's been there to goal keep, and he's kept that goal very well. He's kept the ball out of the net numerous times, and I adore him. I absolutely adore him. He's my favourite player at the club, as you all know, and I so want to vote for him. I really do. But, you know, we'll go for everybody. Jota. Wow, just unbelievable. Dazzled is the word. He has dazzled me. He's dazzled all of us as Celtic supporters. He's came into this league and he's made a case for being the best in the league. Someone that we all desperately want to see stay at Celtic, and hopefully does stay at Celtic. The skills and the ability that this boy possesses are unmatched in this league. He is so good. And I think a lot of people might argue that he hasn't been as good in the second half of the season as he maybe was in the first half when he first burst onto the scene for Celtic. I would suggest that, yeah, maybe that's right to an extent, but you can't underestimate the influence that Jota brings to the team, just the sheer quality. He might not get the goals and assists that he was getting at the start of the season. He might not have the stats there to show it from the second half, which is ridiculous to say because he still has a fair few. But he's still been unbelievable, and he does so much to, once again, like Joe Hart, change the course of a game. The ability for him to take the ball and carry it and bring players into the game is unbelievable. And he's someone who I've not seen many players like him. He's a one-of-a-kind talent. And this season, he's opened our eyes and lifted us off our seat countless times. He's that good. And watching him is just marvellous. He's someone I want to watch in a Celtic shirt for the rest of my life. He'll always be remembered as one of the best talents I've seen in a Celtic shirt for me, and once again a player very worthy of being in the player of the season conversation. Kyogo Furuhashi, the darling, the superstar of the Celtic team, burst onto the scene, scoring at massive goals, hat-tricks. He's just been a joy to watch. And it's been such a shame that we've not managed to see him since Boxing Day. I know he came on for the last sort of 15 minutes against St Johnstone, but in general, we've not managed to see him since Boxing Day, which is a real shame. But this is a guy that single-handedly won us the League Cup. Came back from injury, won that game for us, scored 2 incredible goals, and he's scored incredible goals all season. Remember that one against Ferencvaros in the Tuesday afternoon Europa League game? He has been unbelievable, and he's been one of the greatest signings that we've made in modern times because of everything that he's brought, not just on the pitch but off the pitch, the radiance, the character, the individual that he is. He's a special human being, Kyogo Furuhashi, and he's rose to the top of this league in terms of goal scorers. He's rose to the top of this league in terms of household names. He's someone that for years Celtic fans will talk about. He reminds me of all these cult heroes we've had in the past that have came in and electrified Celtic fans. That is Kyogo Furuhashi. See, honestly, if he had the second half of the season, he would probably have been by far and miles away the easy vote for player of the season. Sadly, he didn't have that second half of the season, but we can't underestimate what he's done for us and how big an influence he's been on our season. And finally, Cameron Carter-Vickers, the only defender included here, and by far and miles, as I said with Kyogo, the best defender in the Scottish Premiership. What a signing he has been too. He has brought stability, he's brought reassurance, and he has brought confidence to Celtic's back line. Him above all players for me has been the guy from start to finish this season who has been impeccably good. McGregor up there as well, but he had that little spell where he was out injured, of course. But Carter-Vickers, from start to finish, has been unbelievable. He has been the most important player, I think, in this Celtic team. And he's the first centre-half in years at Celtic that has brought nothing but positives to this team. Since Van Dijk, even I already had the wee bomb scare moments in him, but yeah, I had those moments in him. For me, Cameron Carter-Vickers stands out above all of these guys. And I've always tried to stay away from recency bias, but it's true. And I made that video on him last week about the update on his Celtic future, and hopefully someone else that can stay here. But I said everything I had to in that video. I said everything about Cameron Carter-Vickers. The unit that he is unbelievable, and he's chipped in with goals as well when we've needed him to. I think overall this guy's game has been just so good, and it cannot go ignored. And for me, that is why Cameron Carter-Vickers is Celtic Football Club Player of the Year. So, goal of the season, it's a bit harder to talk about all of these because I'm not going to give an audio description of each goal. I'm also, as far as I'm aware, not allowed to show the clips of the goals, which is a shame. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I'm not going to chance it for the risk of the video getting taken down. I will read through the list of goals and try and give a brief sort of reaction to all of them. I'm then going to go away and rewatch all of the goals and give my decision for goal of the season. But there are 10 options, 10 fantastic options for goal of the season. We've been spoiled with entertainment. We've been spoiled by world-class goals, world-class finishes, team goals, solo goals, everything. It's been a feast of football for us, as we know, this season. And Ange Postecoglou's football just never stops. Never stops. And that's what's presented us with these 10 fantastic options this season. So I'm going to jump away and look at them all, but here's very quickly the 10 goals that we have been presented. Callum McGregor against Midtjylland in the Champions League qualifiers, if you remember, the volley from outside of the box, absolutely stupendous. Jota against Aberdeen, right early on in the season, back in October. David Turnbull against his old club Motherwell back in October as well, a couple of weeks later. Kyogo Furuhashi against Ferencvaros. We brought it up a moment ago, a goal if you pardon the pun, with that Tuesday afternoon kickoff. Tom Rogic against Dundee United, that beautiful goal at Tannadice where he basically done it all himself. It was fantastic. We then have Kyogo Furuhashi again with a goal against Hibs. And then we have Kyogo Furuhashi again with a goal against Hibs, both from the same game. The two goals that won us the League Cup, both spectacular in their own right. We then have Rio Hatate with his goal against Hearts from range, which bedazzled Craig Gordon, you could say. Rio Hatate's goal against Rangers from outside the area, which obviously sent the place into sheer euphoria. And finally, Matt O'Reilly's goal from very recently against St Johnstone in the 7-0 victory. There's the 10 options. I wish I could show you them all. I'm quickly going to go away and watch them and be back in a moment with what I think is the goal of the season. Just watching them all back, unbelievable. What a selection of goals, by the way. One of the best and hardest ones yet in terms of voting for a goal of the season. I forgot how good some of the early goals were because they're a little while ago now. Jota's against Aberdeen, the passing leading up to that, unbelievable. Turnbull's a belter. You know, Tom Rogic against Dundee United, seeing that again, unbelievable. I think that there's two standout options for me when it comes to the goal of the season. It's Callum McGregor's against Midtjylland back in the Champions League qualifiers, and it's Kyogo Furahashi's second against Hibs in the cup final. I think McGregor's is the hardest to do as a player. To bring that down the way he does with his chest, to then hit it first time on the left foot and put it in the net the way he does, is unbelievable. From sheer skill, I'm just thinking, wow, that's the winner. But Kyogo's is ultimately as well a goal that takes a tremendous amount of skill. To take it the way he does, to chip the keeper at Hampden, that's an iconic goal. That goal is iconic. McGregor's is brilliant, but it's not a goal that's going to be... Well, it is. We'll remember it for how good it is, but Kyogo's is Larson-esque, you know what I mean? It's a cup final, he's won us the cup with that. And that alone for me sends Kyogo's to being the winner. I must admit, I'm going for Kyogo's second goal. For me, it's just truly, truly iconic. Young player of the season's a bit easier for me. They've had to beef it out a little bit, haven't they, by throwing in Stephen Welsh. Not that Stephen Welsh has been bad this season, but he's been brought in, he's done a good job. I just don't think he's up there in the conversation with the likes of O'Reilly, Abada and Turnbull. Turnbull's been unlucky with injury this season, but when he has featured, he's been important. For me, it's easy. It's Liel Abad. As I said, it's a guy that should have been in the conversation for player of the season. I think this is the easiest one to pick from. There's not much of a conversation. Abad has been so good. And O'Reilly has been brilliant as well, don't get me wrong, but he's only been here since January. Abad has been doing it from the very get-go this season, and that's what wins it for me. It's an easy one. Liel Abada, easily young player of the season. And finally, it's the women's player of the season. And three players who really do deserve this. They've all been fantastic. For as much as I follow the women's team, I know that these three have chipped in and had some brilliant performances over the course of the season for Fran Alonso's side. And three players who, hard to choose from yet again. We've got Jacinta there alongside Charlie Wellings and Olivia Chance. Three good players, three important players. I'm going to go with the popular one. I'm going to go with Jacinta. Viva Jacinta Brigada. That's my option for Women's Player of the Season. And that does it. So yeah, that brings us to the end of the video. There's my choices for the end of season awards at Celtic. I hope you have enjoyed that. Let me know your picks in the comments below as well. And we're one step closer to Derby Day on Sunday. Ladies and gents, thank you very much. Like and subscribe. See you next time.